There is a highly calculated, deeply exhausting psychological survival script playing out in the everyday lives of millions of individuals that forces the human mind to carry an absolute mountain of internal pressure while displaying a face of perfect, unshakable calm to the outside world. You walk through your ordinary day, you manage your computer workspace with absolute diligence, and you greet your family and colleagues with a warm, reassuring smile. To anyone looking from the outside, you appear completely secure, highly capable, and entirely in control of your reality. But the exact second you lock the door, shut down your workspace monitor, and sit in absolute isolation, the mask instantly drops, leaving you staring into the void in a state of profound emotional exhaustion and quiet panic. In clinical cognitive psychology, this silent containment loop is known as hyper-independent masking. It is the devastating subconscious habit of burying your own pain, your own struggles, and your own normal human limitations beneath an armor of performance, completely blinding the people around you to the reality of your suffering, simply to protect your position as the strong one in the room. This profound emotional lockdown is driven by a psychological mechanism known as compulsory self-containment, operating through a structure called the strong one schema. When an individual matures inside an early childhood environment, where emotional vulnerability was treated as a dangerous liability, a sign of weakness, or an absolute burden to their caregivers, their predictive processing engine builds a rigid defense network. Their subconscious associates asking for help or expressing genuine distress with the immediate, terrifying threat of rejection or abandonment. To ensure their survival inside the family or social herd, their mind invents a manipulative compromise. It builds a permanent, performative identity based on being completely self-reliant, endlessly available to solve everyone else's crises, and entirely immune to personal struggle. Your brain treats your authentic feelings as volatile disruptions that must be violently suppressed, effectively blinding your conscious ego to your own exhaustion simply to ensure your internal simulation of strength never breaks. To understand why this silent overload carries such an ironclad, paralyzing lock over your daily consciousness, we must look at the neurobiology of expressive suppression and the prefrontal limbic shielding circuits. When modern neuroscientists place individuals who specialize in masking their emotions inside functional brain scanners and expose them to intense emotional stresses, they observe an extraordinary neural event. While a normal brain utilizes its emotional pathways to naturally process and discharge distress, the masking brain displays a hyper-intense, continuous surge of activity inside the right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, the exact region responsible for forcefully inhibiting motor actions and suppressing internal impulses. Simultaneously, their amygdala remains in a state of permanent hidden hyperactivation. In a very literal sense, your biology pulls the plug on your internal release valves. Your brain uses massive neural energy to block your feelings from ever reaching your vocal cords, flooding your central nervous system with chronic cortisol, forcing your body to live inside a state of low-grade fight or flight, simply to maintain a performative smile. When this intense neurochemical pressure takes hold during a period of private exhaustion, the subconscious mind deploys an automated defensive maneuver known as altruistic deflection fabulation. This is a highly sophisticated psychological shield where the brain actively uses its intellect to invent comforting justifications for why its own pain must remain completely invisible. The human mind cannot tolerate the internal instability of recognizing that it is slowly destroying its own health out of a primitive fear of vulnerability. To protect your pride from the terrifying realization that your strength is actually a prison, your mind performs a catastrophic rewriting of reality. It begins telling a narrative of superior responsibility. It convinces your conscious ego that your problems are minor compared to what others are facing, that people are entirely dependent on your stability, or that showing a crack in your armor would collapse your workspace or home. Notice how your mind weaponizes your own capacity for empathy to keep you completely blind to your own neglect, leaving your defenses totally lowered while you carry a weight that was never yours to bear. The primary weapon the contained ego uses to reinforce this emotional prison is a process called hyper-vigilant responsibility tracking. When your predictive processing engine operates under the strong one schema, it does not allow you to rest in comfortable, open presence inside your life. Instead, it actively forces your intellect to run a continuous, hyper-focused scan of the emotional baselines of everyone around you. The mind becomes an absolute expert at managing external environments to avoid internal vulnerability. You become the ultimate problem solver, the continuous counselor, and the silent anchor for your social circle, entirely blind to the reality that your brain is executing a defensive maneuver. By filling your day with the crises, the thoughts, and the feelings of others, you successfully ensure that nobody ever has the time or space to look past your mask and audit your own internal bleeding, choosing the misery of a solitary exhaustion today over the vulnerability of being truly seen tomorrow. Alongside responsibility tracking, the masked mind utilizes a secondary, highly passive filter known as emotional anhedonia caching. Once a person has spent decades burying their authentic needs, their limits, and their human cries for help inside the dark corners of the shadow self, their internal database transforms their everyday perception into a shield of complete detachment. When you experience a moment of profound exhaustion or low-grade panic inside your computer workspace, your selective attention filter ensures that your brain actively highlights your obligations, your deadlines, and your performance, while completely deleting or ignoring your body's physical warning signals. You stop feeling the depth of your own fatigue, replacing it with a flat, hollow state of autopilot. This filter alters your perception because it makes your self-neglect look like an act of superior resilience, absolute reliability, and professional maturity, completely shielding your ego from the terrifying reality that your refusal to occupy space or ask for comfort is keeping you completely isolated inside your own life. These abstract biological filters manifest daily in devastating real-world loops, the most common of which is the trap of the safe haven citadel. This is the precise reason why the most reliable, high-performing individuals inside a corporate department, a family structure, or a creative project can sit at their computer desks and quietly implode without a single person noticing. Because you have trained your environment to expect absolute consistency, absolute strength, and zero demands from your side, you construct an absolute optical illusion across your entire social workspace. The crowd looks at your performative calm and concludes that you are entirely bulletproof. When your energy levels finally hit a baseline of complete, unassisted burnout, you find yourself completely trapped by your own reputation. You cannot lower your guard because your brain registers dropping the mask as an immediate survival threat to your position in the herd, forcing you to match your own public image, sacrificing your physical and mental health today just to preserve the crowd's comfortable delusion of your strength tomorrow. We see this exact same self-sabotage playing out through the pattern of the resentment overcorrection. When an ordinary, empathetic human being spends years absorbing the emotional trash of an entire environment while denying their own feelings and practicing total invisibility, their central nervous system eventually enters a state of absolute structural collapse. The predictive tracking engine of your brain snaps under the weight of the unexpressed self. Because you cannot maintain the flawless mirror persona any longer, a deep, bitter wave of toxic resentment begins to simmer beneath your conscious awareness. You look at the people around you, people who are happily taking your energy, your time, and your support without ever asking how you are doing, and your mind performs an immediate, dark rewrite of history. You brand them as uniquely selfish, ungrateful, and predatory, entirely blind to the reality that your own hyper-independent masking is the exact mechanism that trained them to treat you as a resource rather than a human being, locking the loop perfectly. When this collective, hyper-independent masking and emotional containment scales up across an entire culture, it produces the highly destructive phenomenon of superficial connection and collective loneliness. A society slides into a profound crisis of decay when its primary citizens stop interacting through genuine vulnerability, shared truth, and mutual protection, choosing instead to navigate existence solely through the filtered lens of performative competence, curated digital lives, and low-risk compliance. Independent emotional honesty is treated as an embarrassing social liability. Mass masking turns a population into a synchronized herd of isolated, unthinking echoes who will gladly trade true human intimacy and deep psychological safety simply to protect the fragile ego from the risk of being perceived as weak. A civilization does not lose its sanity because it is overrun by external monsters. It slides into a cold, clinical madness because ordinary citizens choose compliance with a comfortable shared illusion of strength over the raw discomfort of reaching out across the void. The true danger of chronic hyper-independent masking is that it constructs a perfectly closed, self-fulfilling cognitive loop that entirely blinds you to your own loss of personal sovereignty. The cycle begins the moment your body experiences an automated wave of internal distress or emotional exhaustion inside your workspace. This high-stress environment creates immediate subconscious pressure to protect your strong persona, forcing your brain to reduce activity in its logical and self-reflective networks. Because your internal boundaries are lowered by the fear of looking weak, you choose compliance with the mask, adopting a hyper-vigilant responsibility tracking loop and burying your pain deeper beneath a performative smile. To clear the immediate wave of internal guilt, your mind instantly deploys altruistic deflection validation, rewriting history to convince your conscious ego that staying silent was an act of superior love and maturity. This failure to stand for your own human limitations is then used by your predictive engine as a new baseline, permanently locking you in a loop of trauma dependency. Dismantling this matrix of emotional starvation requires a rare, aggressive practice known as radical truth disclosure. You cannot think your way out of a hyper-independent masking loop. Your brain's predictive processing engine demands hard, physical data points of absolute vulnerability and structural boundary setting to override its automated survival networks. This reprogramming begins by learning an extraordinary, liberating truth uncovered in clinical psychology. Your capacity to carry pain is not a measure of your worth, and your human limitations are not a crime. The next time a wave of exhaustion or low-grade panic hits your system inside your computer workspace, do not look to your performance for validation. Recognize that your rising heart rate is your amygdala firing an early rejection alarm. Force your physical body to execute an absolute stop. Drop the mask. Refuse to take on the next external crisis, and state your raw, objective limits with absolute calmness and clarity, providing an immediate data point that proves your survival is secure without your performance. Tearing away your armor of strength and choosing to stand in your raw, unfiltered human truth is an act of supreme heroism, because it forces you to face the raw neural pain of standing completely exposed outside your fortress of certainty. Your brain will fight this process at every single turn, desperately screaming at you to put the mask back on, hide your tears, and accept the comfortable shared illusions of your independence, simply to keep your ego safe in the pack. But now that you know the anatomy of the trap, now that you understand how your subconscious mind uses compulsory self-containment, the strong one schema, and altruistic deflection to turn you into an unthinking echo, the performance has lost its lock over your consciousness. You can choose to step out of the illusion and view your reality with absolute, unyielding clarity. This navigation of your subconscious architecture is a lifelong education, and your brain utilizes dozens of other invisible neural mechanisms every single day to dictate your choices and trap you on autopilot without your consent. If you are ready to shatter the rest of these hidden mental loops, discover how your mind fakes reality, and unlock the true mechanisms of your subconscious, click on the playlist appearing on your screen right now. We have built an entire archive of long-form psychological deep dives designed explicitly to help you look past the self-delusions of your ego. Click through, explore the library, and take absolute control of your psychology.